A deadly investigation linked to KFC is raising serious concerns, as officials warn about potential health risks tied to repeated consumption and supply chain practices now under scrutiny. What people are eating from KFC isn't just fast food or an occasional indulgence. It's part of a larger system built to maximize profit through industrial processes that quietly expose everyday customers to long-term risks. This isn't home-style cooking. It's closer to a factory operation, where food moves through assembly lines and chemical treatments that resemble a laboratory more than a kitchen. From menu items containing over 30 processed ingredients in a single serving, to reports of frying oil reused for hours at extreme temperatures producing harmful byproducts, the details are unsettling. And KFC has secrets most customers never see. Details buried behind branding, nostalgia, and a smiling colonel. So buckle up, because once you understand how this system really works, eating here the same way won't feel so harmless anymore. We're starting with the most shocking revelation of all. The chicken isn't fresh, it's rehydrated. KFC chicken. Warm, crispy, familiar. The kind of food that smells like Friday nights, road trips, and paper buckets on the kitchen table. You tear into it while it's still steaming, salt on your fingers, that first crunchy bite snapping clean. It feels simple, real. Comfort food that's supposed to be just chicken, breading, and oil. Nothing strange, nothing hidden. You'd naturally assume it's fresh chicken, delivered chilled, seasoned, breaded, and cooked close to the moment you order it. Just meat, heat, and time. The same basic logic as cooking chicken at home. Real chicken, real food, nothing more. But in reality, much of KFC's chicken begins its life frozen solid and chemically rehydrated before cooking. Long before it ever reaches a fryer, the meat is processed at industrial facilities, frozen through massive cold tunnels, then shipped across extended supply chains. Freezing ruptures muscle fibers, forcing moisture out and leaving the meat dry, spongy, and structurally damaged. To fix that, the chicken is thawed and soaked in saline solutions, mixtures of salt and water engineered to bind liquid back into the protein. This gives the meat a slick surface, a uniform shape, and an artificially plump appearance. These saline systems are the same binding methods used in laboratory food engineering, designed to make tissue absorb and hold liquid. You're not just eating chicken, you're eating engineered tissue modified to behave like a sponge. The FDA classifies these treatments as generally recognized as safe. But in regulatory language, safe means permitted for sale, not designed for frequent, habitual consumption inside a human body. Eat this a few times a week, and you're repeatedly introducing meat that has already been structurally altered and chemically manipulated to hold excess liquid, salt, and later, fryer oil. It isn't a one-time exposure, it's a slow repeating load. That added sodium and oil absorption forces your kidneys to work harder, elevates blood pressure, strains the heart, and increases inflammatory stress throughout the body. Your circulatory system isn't just processing food, it's managing a chemically optimized delivery vehicle for salt and fat. Here's the part most people never realize. Because this meat is engineered to absorb liquid, it also absorbs more oil during frying. So even if two pieces look the same, the rehydrated one quietly holds more fat, meaning you're paying for water, absorbing more oil, and ingesting a heavier internal load without ever knowing it. And once you see what that oil turns into after hours inside those fryers, the chicken itself becomes the least disturbing part of the meal. Their breading is designed to trigger cravings. Once you've bitten into KFC chicken a few times, you start to recognize that smell before you even see the bucket. Warm, salty, familiar. It's the kind of aroma that feels like movie nights, late drives, and greasy paper napkins on your lap. You crack through that first crunchy layer, feel the flakes fall, and your body instantly relaxes. It feels simple, harmless, just chicken with a tasty coating. You'd naturally assume that coating is just seasoned flour, a few spices, and oil. The same kind of breading you'd use at home. Nothing complicated, nothing calculated, just flavor, crunch, and comfort. But in reality, that breading is carefully formulated using precise ratios of salt, fat, and flavor enhancers designed to make each bite feel more intense than it actually is. Long before it reaches your tray, the seasoning blend is engineered in food laboratories to deliver a very specific sensory response. Salt is layered to hit your taste buds instantly. Fat carries flavor deeper into the mouth, and additives like MSG amplify what's already there, making ordinary flavors feel richer, rounder, and more satisfying than they would naturally be. The crunch isn't just texture, it's part of the signal that tells your brain something rewarding just happened. These are the same sensory amplification techniques used across industrial food manufacturing to shape how the body perceives taste and satisfaction. You're not just eating chicken, you're experiencing a calibrated stimulus designed to feel bigger than the food itself. Regulatory agencies allow these ingredients and classify them as safe for use, but allowed simply means permitted for sale, not that they're intended to be eaten repeatedly, week after week, in large portions. Eat this kind of coating regularly, and your body keeps encountering high salt, high fat, high intensity flavor signals that can quietly nudge appetite and portion size upward over time. Meals start to feel less filling unless they're louder, saltier, crunchier. That repeated exposure puts extra demand on systems that manage fluid balance, blood pressure, and circulation, especially when meals like this become routine rather than occasional. Here's the part most people never think about, that engineered coating also soaks up more fryer oil than a simple homemade breading would. So the same piece of chicken quietly delivers more fat than it appears to on the surface. And once you see what prolonged fryer oil exposure does to that coating over the course of a day, the crunch itself starts to look like the least concerning part of the meal. KFC uses dark meat because it hides defects. By now, the pattern should feel familiar. First, the chicken is processed, frozen, and rehydrated. Then it's wrapped in breading engineered to trigger cravings. But there's another quiet decision baked into the system, one that makes all of this easier to conceal. KFC relies heavily on dark meat, not because it's better, not because it's fresher, but because it's forgiving. Dark meat contains more fat, more connective tissue, and a deeper natural color. Those traits are excellent at hiding flaws. Oxidation, age, and freezer damage all blend in instead of standing out. White breast meat, by contrast, shows problems immediately. Gray patches, dryness, and uneven texture are obvious to the consumer. Dark meat tolerates freezing, rehydration, and repeated handling, still looking acceptable once breaded and fried. The defects don't vanish. They're just camouflaged. Ice crystals from freezing rupture muscle fibers. Over time, that leads to dryness, off textures, and subtle flavor loss. In white meat, these issues are apparent. In dark meat, higher fat masks the damage. The result is meat that appears uniform, soft, and visually appealing, even when compromised. This isn't accidental, it's operationally convenient. Dark meat survives long storage, rough handling, and repeated temperature swings far better than lean cuts. For a massive supply chain, that reliability reduces waste and ensures consistency. But for the consumer, it's a compromise. A juicy piece may actually be compensating for structural damage months earlier. Fat fills in gaps left by weakened muscle. Breading and seasoning smooth over the rest. Texture inconsistencies follow naturally. One bite is tender, the next oddly mushy. That softness isn't freshness, it's engineered resilience. You're paying for a cut that survives the system efficiently, not necessarily one that's high quality. And when the meat itself is chosen to conceal age and flaws, the bigger question looms: what else is being hidden beneath layers of fat, seasoning, and crunch? The answer becomes clearer when you track how long the chicken sits before it ever hits the fryer. Their frying oil is chemically stabilized. Once the chicken itself is engineered to survive freezing, handling, and concealment, the next pressure point is the fryer. At KFC's scale, oil isn't just a cooking medium, it's an operational asset. Fresh oil breaks down quickly under high heat. It oxidizes, smokes, and degrades, creating off flavors and instability. That's a problem when fryers run continuously throughout the day. The solution isn't constant replacement, it's chemical stabilization. Oils are treated with antioxidants, compounds designed to slow breakdown during long fry cycles. These additives help the oil last far longer than any home cook would consider normal. On paper, it looks efficient. In reality, it introduces a hidden cost most customers never consider. Repeated heating, cooling, and reheating changes the molecular structure of the fat. Even with antioxidants, oxidation continues. Polymers form, byproducts accumulate, some volatile, some absorbed into the chicken itself. The oil looks normal, chicken browns, breading crisps. But chemically, it's no longer what it was at the start of the day or the week. Those breakdown byproducts migrate into the meat, the crust, and every bite you take. Heat opens the door. Fat carries the load. This explains the heavy, lingering, slightly acrid smell of fast food fryers. It isn't just fried food. It's stressed, stabilized oil pushed to its functional limit. From a frugal perspective, longer-lasting oil equals lower operating costs. From a consumer perspective, it means exposure to oxidized fats and compounds no one intended you to notice. When the chicken is engineered to absorb liquid, the breading engineered to trigger cravings, and the oil engineered to endure chemical stress, a pattern emerges. The end product isn't food anymore. It's the output of a process optimized for throughput, efficiency, and shelf life, not for freshness, nutrition, or safety. And the final step, heat holding, keeps that pattern invisible while pushing risk directly onto the plate. The chicken is often pre-steamed. By the time the chicken reaches the fryer, most people imagine that's where cooking truly begins. Raw chicken goes in, crispy food comes out. Simple, but at KFC's scale, simplicity doesn't survive efficiency. To move product faster and more consistently, chicken is often partially cooked before it ever hits the oil. This process, commonly called pre-steaming or par cooking, uses moist heat to jumpstart internal doneness. It's not about flavor, it's about time. Steam cooks quickly and evenly. It reduces variability between pieces and lowers the risk of undercooking during rush periods. From an operational standpoint, it's efficient. From a food quality standpoint, it quietly changes everything. Steaming forces moisture out of muscle fibers. As heat penetrates, proteins tighten and squeeze liquid away. Flavor compounds dissolve and escape with that moisture. What remains is meat structurally altered before it ever meets seasoning, breading, or oil. That lost flavor must be compensated for later, which is where aggressive seasoning, heavy breading, and strong frying aromas become essential. They don't enhance the chicken. They replace what was stripped away. Pre-steamed chicken also behaves differently in the fryer. With internal moisture already shifted, the meat absorbs oil more readily. Fat moves in to occupy the space water once held. The result feels juicy, but it's a different kind of moisture, driven by oil, not freshness. Texture shifts too. Fibers tightened under steam don't relax during frying, creating pieces that feel oddly firm or uneven. It's not inconsistency at the store level, it's structural damage upstream. From a frugal perspective, pre-steaming reduces cook times, lowers error rates, and increases throughput. Every shortcut compounds profit. But for the consumer, it means chicken has been cooked, altered, cooled, and cooked again. Each step stripping flavor, moisture, and texture. Once pre-steamed, the meat becomes far more dependent on holding systems. Heat lamps, warming cabinets, and timers extend usability, but not integrity. And that's when the real risk begins. Food already cooked twice doesn't just lose quality as it sits. It enters a zone where time, temperature, and bacteria negotiate behind the scenes. And that negotiation doesn't always end in the customer's favor. The 11 herbs and spices is mostly salt. By the time people hear 11 herbs and spices, the decision is already made for them. The phrase sounds old, natural, almost artisanal. It suggests careful seasoning, balanced flavor, and a recipe rooted in tradition. But that story exists more in marketing than reality. When you strip away the mythology, most of the flavor impact doesn't come from herbs at all. It comes from salt, and a lot of it. Salt is cheap, powerful, and reliable. It enhances taste instantly, suppresses bitterness, and keeps food palatable even when underlying ingredients are bland or compromised. In large-scale systems, salt isn't a seasoning, it's a tool. That matters because the chicken has already lost much of its natural flavor through freezing, rehydration, pre-steaming, and extended handling. By the time it's coated, there isn't much left to highlight. Instead of subtle herbs, the system leans heavily on sodium and flavor enhancers to do the work. Compounds like MSG amplify saltiness and fat perception, making food feel richer and more satisfying than it actually is. Your tongue reads complexity. Your brain reads reward. This is why the flavor feels bold but hard to describe. You don't taste thyme or pepper individually. You taste impact. The seasoning hits fast, peaks quickly, and lingers just long enough to make the next bite feel necessary. High sodium also masks flaws. Old oil, oxidized meat, or moisture imbalance are harder to detect. Salt doesn't just add flavor, it hides problems. From a frugal perspective, this is cost optimization. Herbs are expensive, inconsistent, and fragile under heat. Salt is stable, uniform, and effective at scale. Heavy sodium loads also increase thirst, encourage larger drink purchases, and push consumption beyond hunger. The branding says herbs and spices. The experience says salt and enhancement. Once you realize most of the flavor is doing neurological work instead of culinary work, the trust gap widens. When flavor is engineered to override taste, fullness, and caution, the question isn't what's in the recipe anymore. It's what the recipe is trying to control. Their chicken can sit under heat lamps for hours. By the time the chicken is fried, seasoned, and boxed, most people assume the process is over. Cooked food should be eaten quickly. Freshness should be measured in minutes. But in high-volume fast food systems, time works differently. At KFC, cooked chicken isn't always served immediately. To keep up with rushes and unpredictable demand, batches are held in warming cabinets or under heat lamps, waiting for the next order. These systems are designed to keep food hot, not fresh. Heat lamps don't stop time. They slow visible cooling while accelerating internal breakdown. Moisture escapes. Oils oxidize. Proteins tighten. The chicken doesn't stay the same, it quietly degrades. Texture changes first. Breading softens, then hardens. Meat becomes stringy or dense. What was crisp and juicy turns heavy and tired. Heat keeps it sellable, but not intact. The oil suffers too. Warmed chicken continues to absorb and redistribute fat. Oxidized oil trapped in the breading concentrates, producing off flavors, even if salt and seasoning try to mask them. What makes this concerning isn't just quality, it's chemistry. Warm temperatures keep fats active, allowing oxidation byproducts to form faster. The longer the food sits, the more these compounds accumulate inside the meat and coating. Yet visually, the chicken still looks acceptable. Color holds, heat stays. From the outside, nothing signals waiting time. The system depends on that ambiguity. From a frugal perspective, holding food longer reduces waste. Every extra minute under heat is another chance to sell rather than discard. But that efficiency pushes risk downstream onto the customer. And once chicken has been frozen, rehydrated, pre-steamed, fried in stabilized oil, salted, and flavor enhanced, extended heat holding becomes the final stress test. Each prior step makes the next more fragile. This is how food crosses a line unnoticed, not through a single failure, but through cumulative tolerance. When the system asks, "Is it still hot?" instead of "Is it still good?" the real danger isn't taste or texture. It's how far the system is willing to stretch time before someone pays the price. The batter absorbs oil like a sponge. By the time the chicken reaches the customer, most people assume the oil did its job and drained away. Fry, crisp, serve. What remains is flavor and texture. That's the comforting assumption. But KFC's batter isn't designed to shed oil, it's designed to hold it. The crust structure is intentionally porous. Tiny air pockets form during frying as moisture flashes into steam and escapes. Those gaps don't disappear when the chicken leaves the fryer. They remain open, waiting to be filled, and what fills them is oil. As the chicken cools, pressure inside the crust drops. Oil rushes inward, soaking the batter like a sponge. The longer it sits, especially under heat lamps, the more fat it retains. Crispness becomes a trap rather than a shield. The coating carries more fat than the meat itself. Each ridge, bubble, and flake is another surface designed to grab and hold oil. That oil isn't fresh. It's chemically stressed, heated repeatedly, stabilized with antioxidants, pushed to its limit. The batter doesn't just absorb fat, it absorbs whatever the fat carries with it. Once oil enters the crust, it doesn't leave. Paper liners don't pull it out. Heat keeps it mobile, coating fibers and settling into every crevice. What tastes juicy is often just saturation. From a sensory perspective, this overwhelms natural signals. Fat delays fullness, coats the mouth, dulls taste receptors, and encourages larger bites. From a frugal perspective, oil retention boosts mouthfeel, masks dryness, and makes lower quality meat feel richer than it is. Efficiency disguised as indulgence. But the risk compounds over time. Chicken that sits longer absorbs more oil. Oxidizing fat breaks down faster inside porous batter. Heat keeps the process active. By the time you bite in, you're not just eating chicken, you're eating a delivery system for degraded fat. And once you realize how much oil the batter is designed to trap, the next question becomes unavoidable. If the coating is built to absorb everything around it, what else is it picking up before it reaches your plate? Their macros are engineered for re-hunger. By this point, the chicken has been altered, coated, soaked, and held. But the final manipulation doesn't happen in the kitchen. It happens in your body. KFC meals are built around a specific macro balance, one that feels satisfying in the moment but fades fast. High glycemic starches, heavy sodium, and concentrated fat spike energy quickly, then drop it just as fast. The result isn't fullness, it's rebound hunger. The breading and sides rely on refined carbohydrates. These digest rapidly, flooding the bloodstream with glucose. That initial surge feels warm, comforting, energizing, but it doesn't last. Insulin then overshoots, and hunger returns abruptly. Fat slows digestion just enough to stretch the experience, while salt amplifies palatability and suppresses natural stop signals. Together, they create a window where the food feels indulgent, but fails to anchor lasting satiety. This is why people feel full during the meal, yet empty shortly after. Calories are there, volume is there, but the nutritional structure isn't designed for sustainability. Fast digesting meals train the body to expect another hit soon. Cravings return earlier, snacking increases, the cycle tightens. From a frugal perspective, this is costly. You don't just pay for the meal, you pay again later. Another snack, another drink, another order sooner than planned. The system benefits when hunger returns quickly. High sodium masks actual intake through temporary water retention, creating an illusion of fullness that fades as balance returns. This isn't accidental. Meals that digest slowly encourage spacing. Meals that digest fast encourage repetition. By the time you realize you're hungry again, the meal has done its job. Not nourishing, not sustaining, just resetting the clock. And when food is designed to make you hungry faster than it should, the concern isn't taste, texture, or ingredients. It's dependency. For millions, that cycle repeats every week, invisibly shaping habits and purchases, keeping the system running at full speed. The chicken is often sourced from mega-scale industrial farms. By the time everything else has been engineered, the processing, the breading, the oil, the macros, it's easy to forget the most basic question. Where does the chicken actually come from? At KFC's scale, sourcing isn't about farms in the traditional sense. It's about volume. Most chicken comes from mega-scale industrial operations designed to grow birds as fast as biologically possible. Speed isn't a side effect, it's the goal. These birds are bred to reach slaughter weight in a fraction of the time nature intended. Rapid growth strains their bodies. Muscle fibers expand faster than connective tissue can support, resulting in meat with lower structural integrity and reduced density. That density matters. Slowly grown muscle develops stronger fibers and more complex nutrition. Rapid growth produces meat that looks substantial but is functionally weaker. This is why industrial chicken often feels soft, watery, or fragile. Cells hold more fluid and less protein. When frozen, rehydrated, and cooked, that weakness is amplified. Nutrient density suffers too. Fast growth prioritizes calories over micronutrients. The meat delivers protein, but fewer vitamins and minerals. You eat more to get less. From a frugal perspective, this is the foundation for every compromise that follows. Cheap inputs enable cheap processing. Weak meat requires heavy seasoning. Low density is masked with breading and oil. The system stacks solutions on top of a problem it created at the start. Because these farms operate at massive scale, individual quality becomes irrelevant. Uniformity replaces integrity. If a bird meets weight targets, it moves forward. Structural health doesn't matter. By the time it reaches your plate, the chicken has been shaped months earlier, far from the fryer, far from the restaurant, far from any image of freshness. Once you see that the system depends on rushed growth, masked defects, chemical stabilization, and engineered hunger, the story stops being about one meal. It becomes about an industrial pipeline optimized for turnover, not nourishment. And the question the system never wants you to ask emerges: if every step prioritizes speed, volume, and endurance, What exactly was ever meant to benefit the person eating it? Their gravy isn't really gravy. Gravy is supposed to be the most honest thing on the tray. Traditionally, it comes from pan drippings, fat, browned bits, natural juices released during cooking. It's a byproduct of real food, not an invention. That expectation is exactly what makes KFC's version so misleading, because what's being served isn't built from drippings at all. It's built from formulation. At scale, true gravy is inefficient. Drippings vary in volume and flavor from batch to batch. That unpredictability doesn't work in an industrial system built for uniformity. So instead of relying on what naturally falls from the chicken, the system replaces it with something controllable. Customers get a starch slurry, thickened with modified starches, loaded with flavor enhancers, and colored with browning agents to mimic real gravy. The texture feels familiar. The color signals richness, but the foundation isn't meat, it's chemistry. Starch provides bulk. Flavor enhancers simulate savory depth. Browning agents replicate visual cues your brain associates with slow-cooked food. Together, they create the illusion of gravy without relying on actual drippings. That illusion matters because gravy is poured over everything: mashed potatoes, chicken, biscuits. It becomes a delivery layer, coating food engineered for softness, oil retention, and salt impact. Thick starch clings, salt lingers. Flavor enhancers stretch the taste experience longer than the ingredients deserve. What feels comforting is cumulative stimulation. From a frugal perspective, it's efficient. Starch and additives are cheap, shelf-stable, and predictable. Real drippings are not. Nutritionally, this adds another fast-digesting carbohydrate layer to a meal already built for re-hunger. Glucose spikes quickly, fades fast, and delivers almost no substance. And because it looks like gravy, people trust it. They pour more, uncritically. The pattern repeats. Replace something real with something engineered. Preserve the image, remove the origin. Optimize for consistency, not integrity. By the time the gravy hits the tray, it's no longer about chicken. It's about simulation. And once even the gravy is artificial, the question isn't which part is real. It's whether the system ever intended any of it to be. Their chicken loses protein after frying. At the end of all this, most people cling to one assumption: at least it's protein. Fried, salty, indulgent, but protein nonetheless. That belief is what makes the final detail so unsettling. By the time KFC's chicken reaches your plate, the usable protein content isn't what it appears to be. Protein isn't just about presence, it's about density. How much intact muscle remains per gram matters more than the number printed on a menu. And that density is compromised long before the fryer comes into play. The chicken starts overhydrated. Freezing damages fibers. Rehydration forces water back in. Pre-steaming pushes moisture out. Each step loosens structure, leaving meat with weakened fibers. Then comes deep frying. High heat denatures proteins aggressively. When proteins are already fragile, fibers contract, squeeze out remaining moisture, and collapse. What survives is less functional protein and more empty mass. Meanwhile, oil rushes in. Fat replaces water. The weight increases, but protein does not. Gram for gram, the ratio shifts. The chicken feels filling but doesn't sustain. Calories are there, fat is there, but protein, the nutrient responsible for satiety and muscle repair, is diluted. From a nutritional standpoint, this is subtle but significant. A piece that looks substantial may deliver far less usable protein than expected. From a frugal perspective, it matters because protein is the most expensive nutrient on the plate. When density drops, value drops. You're paying for weight, not nourishment. Lower effective protein feeds the rehunger cycle. Hunger returns sooner, not from missing calories, but missing substance. That's the final optimization. Not just making food craveable, not just cheap to produce, but nutritionally thin enough that the cycle restarts quickly. By the time it's eaten, what remains isn't a protein-forward meal. It's water, fat, starch, salt, and heat, wrapped around a shrinking core of what the food was supposed to be. And once protein becomes negotiable, the system's priorities are fully exposed. It's not meant to nourish, it's meant to pass through and bring you back sooner than planned. Their color is chemically preserved. Color is the last thing people question. Golden brown signals freshness. Darker means overcooked. Pale means unsafe. Our brains trust color before smell, texture, or logic, and that instinct is exactly what the system relies on. At KFC's scale, natural browning isn't reliable. Real browning depends on time, moisture balance, and ingredient quality. It varies from batch to batch, fades under heat, and is inconsistent. That unpredictability doesn't work when food may sit for hours and still needs to look just made. So color gets help. Browning agents and color-stabilizing compounds lock in the familiar golden tone. They intensify surface color quickly and hold it, even when the chicken underneath is drying out, oxidizing, or aging under heat lamps. Chicken can look perfectly crispy long after it should have started to dull. The color no longer tells the truth. It tells the story the system wants you to see. This matters because color is one of the body's first freshness cues. When overridden, people rely on fewer signals. Salt masks taste changes. Fat smooths texture breakdown. Color does the rest. Eyes say, fresh. The mouth senses something's off, but the bite is already swallowed. From a frugal perspective, preserved color extends sellable time. Food that looks good doesn't get discarded. Every extra minute under heat becomes recoverable revenue, but visually stable food isn't chemically stable food. Oxidation continues beneath the surface. Oils degrade, proteins tighten, moisture migrates. The degradation doesn't stop, it just stops showing. This pattern repeats across the system. Nothing is allowed to age naturally. Meat, oil, texture, color, all are managed, stabilized, extended. When appearance is engineered to hide time, freshness becomes a concept, not a condition. The more invisible deterioration becomes, the less accountability exists. And in a system already pushed to its limits, that invisibility is dangerous. Their portions shrunk, their calories didn't. Most people assume smaller portions mean lighter meals. Less food should equal fewer calories. That logic feels obvious, and it's exactly why this tactic works so effectively when quietly reversed. Over time, KFC's portions have shrunk. Individual pieces are smaller. Meat-to-bone ratios are thinner. There's less actual chicken than there used to be. But here's the part most people miss. The calorie count hasn't dropped. In many cases, it has gone up. When meat volume decreases, the system compensates elsewhere. More breading, more oil absorption, more sodium-heavy coatings. Calories shift away from protein and toward fat and refined starch, the cheapest calories available. Protein is expensive. Fat and flour are not. So while the chicken looks familiar, the balance has changed. You're eating fewer grams of meat and more grams of coating and oil. The plate feels full, but it's full of something very different than before. This is why bites feel heavier despite smaller portions. Dense protein is replaced with fat-saturated batter, carrying more calories per gram, but delivering less satiety. From a nutritional standpoint, it's a downgrade disguised as moderation. Calories remain high, satisfaction drops, and hunger returns sooner. The body notices missing protein long before the brain does. From a frugal perspective, it's a double loss. You pay the same, or more, for less actual food value, and because the meal doesn't hold you, you're more likely to buy again sooner. Visual cues remain intact, a full bucket, stacked pieces, but substance has thinned, shrinkage without obvious emptiness. This is how systems quietly reset expectations. Smaller becomes normal, heavier becomes expected. By the time people notice, they assume something's wrong with them, not the food. Track the calories instead of the volume, and the manipulation becomes clear. Less meat, same or more calories, lower value per bite. And when a system learns to remove substance without removing energy, the final trick isn't taste. It's convincing you that you're still getting what you paid for, even when you're not. KFC is optimized for repeat addiction, not nutrition. By the time you finish a meal at KFC, it's no longer about taste, convenience, or indulgence. It's about the system, a carefully orchestrated network built to keep customers returning again and again while delivering minimal real nourishment. Every step contributes. The chicken comes from speed-grown birds, is rehydrated, pre-steamed, fried in chemically stabilized oil, and coated in engineered breading. The seasoning isn't culinary, it's neurological, designed to spike dopamine and trigger craving loops. Gravy is a starch slurry that mimics tradition but behaves like a stimulant. Portions are smaller, yet calories remain high. Even the golden color is chemically preserved to fool your eyes. The final effect? Rebound hunger, excessive fat absorption, and diminished protein content. It's a cycle optimized for return. Meals satisfy briefly, then leave the body wanting more. Salt, fat, sugar, and refined starch interact in precise ratios to accelerate digestion and reignite cravings. The more satisfying it feels in the moment, the more dependent you become on the system. From a frugal perspective, repeat visits equal repeat spending. The company doesn't just sell food, they sell behavior patterns. One meal isn't enough. You're meant to come back. Individually, each choice, industrial sourcing, chemical preservation, engineered macros, portion manipulation, seems manageable. Taken together, they create a system designed not for nourishment, but for habit. Most customers never notice. The food tastes familiar. Packaging signals trust. Dopamine masks deficits, and the stomach accepts illusion as substance. KFC isn't just a restaurant. It's an industrial behavioral machine designed to manipulate cravings, override natural satiety, and keep you returning. Every bite carries an invisible cost. You leave hungry, yet full. Eat, yet remain undernourished. Return, yet lose awareness. Once you see it, the realization is clear. KFC isn't just food. It's a system built to make you come back. Not because you need it, but because they engineered it that way. This isn't about KFC. It's about awareness. Before we go any further, let's be clear. This isn't about calling out a single brand. It's not about shaming anyone for what they eat. And it's not about judging choices millions make daily. The goal is awareness. Understanding how systems influence behavior, food, and perception at scale. When we examine KFC, we're really examining a pattern, a system built to optimize speed, consistency, and profit, often at the expense of natural signals like freshness, nutrition, and satiety. Engineered cravings, portion manipulation, chemical stabilization, and industrial sourcing aren't unique. They're present across the food industry. The intent isn't necessarily harm, but the effects on consumers are real. That's why awareness matters. Recognizing these patterns lets you make conscious choices. You don't have to stop eating fried chicken tomorrow or eliminate indulgence entirely. What changes is understanding. When you see how flavor, texture, portion, and nutrition are engineered to influence behavior, you gain the power to decide for yourself how often, how much, and what alternatives to choose. Conscious consumption means noticing your body's signals, asking why a meal feels satisfying in the moment but leaves you hungry soon after, and looking beyond packaging and marketing. Once you see how these systems operate, you can't unsee them. Awareness gives the freedom to act deliberately, question, and choose consciously. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden systems behind a KFC meal, the next step isn't panic, it's sharing awareness. You don't need to lecture anyone or make them feel guilty. Awareness spreads quietly through curiosity and conversation. Sharing this with someone who eats here regularly can make a real difference. Not because they're wrong, but because understanding how systems shape choices is empowering in itself. We also want to hear from you. Comment below on which detail surprised you most. The oil, the breading, the pre-steaming, or the gravy that isn't really gravy. Your thoughts help others notice patterns too, turning surprise into understanding and understanding into conscious choice. Remember, this isn't about fear or judgment. It's about seeing how industrial systems influence habits and reclaiming the power to decide. Every bite, every order, every visit becomes more intentional when you recognize the mechanics at work. Awareness gives perspective, control, and freedom, not restriction. So share, comment, and reflect. Once you see how this works, you don't unsee it. And sharing that insight is how awareness spreads.